Hey guys, so today we're making caprese chicken, roasted red baby potatoes with rosemary, and honey balsamic Brussels sprouts. These are actually my favorite part about the meal, and if you're not a Brussels sprouts fan, give me a chance because these will change your mind. All right, so you can actually make these potatoes whole like this, but I prefer them in little pieces. So let me show you how I cut these red potatoes in order to get an even cook on all sides. So you want to cut them in half first, and then the half that you just cut, you want to cut one more time, turn it, and cut it one more time. So each half will produce 4 slices. Do the same thing to the other. So each One thing I forgot to mention, and one reason why I love this recipe so much, is because these 2 sides and the way I cook my chicken in the oven, it actually requires one temperature, which is 425 degrees. So I set that ahead of this video, and the oven is now ready. So for the red potatoes, I am using 16 red potatoes, giving each person 4 red potatoes as a serving. With that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. So pretty. And I'm also gonna go ahead and add some fresh ground pepper. There's the majority, if not all, the potatoes, along with some sea salt. And then you can just go ahead and use your hand to mix them as long as they've been washed. And at this point, you're actually going to place them on a rimmed cookie sheet, baking pan, however you prefer to call it, and place them into the oven. I will admit it takes about 20 minutes for the first round, but because I'm a new mom and I hate washing dishes, I actually will call the time at 15 and then go ahead and add my Brussels sprouts to the same pan. Okay, so the red potatoes are now on the pan, and like I said, I'm going to utilize only half of it. Go ahead and remove it and add the Brussels sprouts later just to save on dishes, but if you like to wash dishes, go ahead, girlfriend, and use 2 pans, but I'm gonna stick to my one. All right, so while the red potatoes are cooking for the first 15 minutes, I want to speak about some products that I really vouch for, and the first one is olive oil. I know what you're thinking, it's olive oil, no big deal, but it is. According to some guy in Italy who I'm going to trust because they know what they're doing when it comes to Italian food. Am I right? Anyways, so the first way to select your olive oil is to choose a bottle that is made out of glass. It being a glass bottle, you want to choose a bottle that is darker. The reason you want to do that is because olive oil maintains its preservation in a dark stored place, so it helps to preserve the oil even further. Another factor you want to look for is where it's imported from. I love Italy. We went there for our honeymoon. I love Italian food, like your girl can eat carbs. This oil though, I was kind of skeptical because it is a little pricier, which is something that they did admit. They said, if you want high quality olive oil, you're going to have to pay a price. But I challenge you, when it's safe, or if you're going out and practicing social distancing at restaurants, notice authentic Italian restaurants will actually carry this brand. Okay, so next up is the honey balsamic Brussels sprouts. Okay, once again, you want to cut off the tail end. Don't go in too far because then what will happen is all your leaves will fall apart. Cut down the middle. It is a good quality Brussels sprout. Remove some of the leaves once again. Okay, so after cutting all your Brussels sprouts, this is about 3/4 pound because some of them were spoiled of Brussels sprouts. You want to go ahead and add, if you had 1.5 pounds, you would add 3 tablespoons of olive oil to your bowl. And once again, you just utilize your fresh ground pepper. Also want to go ahead and add just a little bit of sea salt as well. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that in my bowl. Now these are ready to be placed onto the pan and in the oven, but since I am waiting for the red potatoes to finish, I'm just gonna place them aside and continue with the next part of our meal. Before getting started on our chicken, I do wanna talk about the difference between sea salt and table salt. What's the difference? Should I buy it? Is it worth the cost difference? And the answer is, it's up to you. It's your kitchen, it's how you decide how you want to prepare your food. The main difference, and really the only key difference between sea salt and table salt, is the coarseness and size of your salt. But I do like to enjoy sea salt on certain items, especially with a meal like this, so I do invest in a bottle of sea salt. I actually have 3 salts always on deck: sea salt, table salt, and kosher salt. Okay, so another question I often get asked is, how do I know my chicken is done? One thing that I have discovered is my favorite method of cooking a chicken breast found is if you crank up the heat of your oven to at least 425 degrees, it will decrease the amount of time that your chicken has to actually sit in the oven. It will produce a faster cook, and it will also produce a better, juicier cook on your chicken. So you can go ahead and try it. For chicken breasts like this, it takes about 18 to 22 minutes. But it's something that you have to kind of mess around with in your oven, just because every oven is different and they have different heats. For my personal oven, it takes about 19 to 20 minutes. So in order to guarantee that each guest will receive a well done chicken, you want to go ahead and make sure that they are evenly the same size. So what you want to do is take a piece of parchment paper, lay it on your countertop, fold the parchment paper over in half. You can utilize a rolling pin. In my case, since my baby is still asleep, I cannot hit the chicken as it will wake him up. So you can gently apply some pressure to make the chicken about 1 inch thick. Okay, so now that my chicken breast is about 1 inch thick, I'm going to take a kitchen brush and gently apply some olive oil. You can find these brushes pretty much anywhere. I believe I got mine at H-E-B. And after applying your olive oil to your chicken, you want to go ahead and season it. The seasoning that I am adding to my chicken, just by gently sprinkling it, is composed of 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, 2 teaspoons of, in this case, I did use table salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I went ahead and applied it to both sides just to guarantee that the chicken is fully seasoned. I'm gonna go ahead and place that on my rimmed. So if you watched my first video, you kind of heard me speak about mise en place, which I'm glad to say I finally figured out how to say that. And it's important for a step like this. So right now I'm going to apply my Brussels sprouts to the second half of the pan, and they are going to meet up with the chicken, and the chicken and along with the veggies will be ready at the same time at 15 minutes. This guarantees that all of your ingredients will be cooked and ready at the same time. To cook in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare the topping for the Caprese chicken. So a Caprese salad is made up of 4 components actually. It's gonna be Roma tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, whichever you prefer, fresh mozzarella, basil, and some balsamic vinegar. And so I went ahead and sliced up 1 Roma tomato. That is sufficient for our family for 4 pieces of chicken, which is 4 servings. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut up the fresh mozzarella. I highly suggest using fresh. It is definitely a steeper item, but it's probably the most expensive item for this specific recipe. So the food is almost done cooking and the toppings are ready for the chicken. I want to talk about my last favorite item. This is a staple in my kitchen thanks to my mom, who actually discovered it. And this is some aged balsamic vinegar. And this is by the company Central Market. I know I said that the mozzarella is probably the most expensive ingredient that you're using in this recipe, but in fact I accidentally lied, and it's this little baby right here. The reason this is so expensive is because, bar none, it is the best balsamic vinegar I've ever had. You can literally just dip bread in it by itself and it tastes absolutely delicious. It's kind of sweet, but at the same time it has some acidic notes that really brings some brightness to your dish. If you are looking for a balsamic vinegar, I cannot recommend this product enough. With about 3 minutes left on the timer, I'm gonna go ahead and add my slices of fresh mozzarella to my chicken. That way they can go ahead and melt and you don't have a cold piece of cheese on top of a hot piece of chicken. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that in the oven just so you guys know. Okay, so now that the vegetables are out, what you wanna look for is a nice caramelized looking color on your Brussels sprout. These are a little light golden, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that these are ready. I'm gonna go ahead and take all my Brussels sprouts and place them back into the bowl that I had initially mixed them with the olive oil, the pepper, and the salt. So to these cooked Brussels sprouts, I am now going to add 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar and 2 teaspoons of honey. You want to go ahead and mix that together, which I already have done, and drizzle that all over the Brussels sprouts. The mixture is inside. I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick little toss of the Brussels sprouts. Now for the red potatoes, they are completely done with the exception of rosemary. I did cut up 1 tablespoon of fresh rosemary, and now I'm just going to go ahead and drizzle that on top of the potatoes. Just time to enjoy. So I went ahead and topped my chicken once it was out of the oven with some fresh Roma tomatoes and fresh basil. And my favorite part is adding some balsamic vinegar to the top of it. This you can decide how much you like. You can drizzle excessively or minimally if you're new to balsamic vinegar, since it is a little tart. This is a go-to in our house, and I hope you guys try it out and let me know what you think. I'm running out of ideas in quarantine on what else to make, so if you have any suggestions for dinner in our household, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Thanks for joining me.